see what's out there.
Okay, I think we can get going. First off, I removed all the pop-up messages on the title screen. They were always in the way. They were just supposed to be temporary, so I put most of the information on the loading screen now. So while you're waiting for your game to load, you can read through this, and you don't have to finish it. As soon as the world is ready, you can click or press any key to start the game. So there's a bit of backstory that I've put there just to kind of get you going into the story, and some of the controls, keys to press and so on to navigate through the map. If anyone wants to ask any questions, just type them up, and I'll keep an eye on the questions and try to answer anything as well as I can.
There's a new building available!
I've also reduced the number of messages that pop up here, and as you can see, I've now combined the buildings so that you don't get bothered too much by the messages popping up here. There'll still be some from time to time, but it will be a lot less. Much of the information has been built into into the tooltips. So if you look at the tooltips now, there's a lot more going on. It's not just telling you the name of the building, it also gives you some hints about where to put the buildings and stuff like that. And then just there's a start that tells you to left click on the messages to go there and right click to remove them. Now you'll see here there are some units walking around. These are my first non-player characters. It was a bit of a hassle to get the visibility right, because up to now we've only worked with either you're always visible or you're never visible, and now it has to change between moving it in and out of the visibility ranges, but that seems to be working well. I will probably have to expand on it even more later when I have different AI players, so I'll probably have to have a visibility indicator for each hex for each player, so that each player's units can know where it can and can't go in the pathfinding, and what it can and can't see virtually. Okay, so these units are based in some new buildings, so I'm gonna
Can never have too many of those.
get a wanderer and a builder.
That's just where I would have put it.
Let's speed up a bit, and then you'll see how the new buildings are hidden until you explore them. So these camps will be the source of new Meeps that can join you. So as your capacity in dwellings, supply, appeal, and order becomes more, so there's four capacity busy being built, these two buildings, and as they come into play or go online, you'll see that some of these Meeps are going to join you. So two of them will be joining at random.
Building complete.
Yeah, two of them will be.
New building available. This building's complete. There's a new building we can build. We've got things
Okay,
to build.
sound seems to be a bit high.
Scouting.
Thanks.
Onwards! Yay!
Is that better? Please give me an indication just in the chat whether the sounds are now okay, or should I turn it down even more? Okay, it's almost gone now, except I think the lightning is probably not linked to the sound yet. Okay, I'll sort that out next time. Luckily it's only every 3 minutes that there will be lightning. So okay, so here you can see the tribal camps. This is where the Meeps originate, and some of them have now already joined. Let's just do it again. So if we build a building, then you'll see there's going to be 2 capacity coming online, and you will then see 2 of these unfriendly Meeps become friendly Meeps and join your cause. I'll reduce the game speed in a moment so that the So yeah, so there's 2 of them coming, a joiner and a joiner. So 2 of these Meeps are just selected at random from any of the camps surrounding you. We're only seeing 1 now, but there's 3 that gets created randomly when the game starts, and they will also serve the purpose of stealing your stuff. So they will be, it's not really like a military threat, but it is a threat to your prosperity, so you need to handle that. And the way in which you will handle that is that you will research. I'll show you the research now. We can build a research hub now. Let's get some other buildings as well to keep them busy. But now, as soon as the research hub is completed, on this overview you'll get things to research for each of the buildings. I haven't got icons yet for the research, but I'm working on that. And this now gives you a breakdown of what it is you can research. I'm going to do scaffolding now, which allows you to build higher buildings, so you can reach up higher, so you can build a watchtower that is a lot higher than your current buildings. So I'm going to let the builders just research. You'll see there's it's 0 of 4, so you need to commit 4 tasks to it to research it. And all of these tooltips have been automated in the system. So you specify a whole list of research items and their dependencies on one another, as well as which buildings they unlock and which buildings they require to be researched. And all these, the order in which they appear here, you've got 3 slots for each building, and the order in which they appear here is already automated for however many research items you want to put in. And for each of the buildings, it will look for any research item that can be that is specified for that slot, the first one that you can research, and put it in there. And that gives you, this now gives you the options. So each building, you can select which of the 3 lines you want to follow, you want to prioritize. And there's also going to be a 4th one here that is an overall research, a realm-wide research, to which all the Meeps, all the different types of Meeps can contribute. So these 3, only the builders can contribute, and the overall research is going to be another tree that everybody can contribute to. So I've now researched scaffolding. The next one is bridge building, which allows us to build bridges. But for now, let's just look at what we can do with scaffolding. So we're going to have another infrastructure icon here, a lookout tower. So this is a high tower that you can place. You can't build too close to this tribal camp. So in order to keep these unfriendly Meeps at bay, you're going to build a watchtower to keep an eye on everything. So basically you want to build it close to their camp and close to your builder's yard, which is basically where you store your provisions or your materials. And I'll still work on the ranges, but this is now going to reduce the amount of loss you have due to the Meeps. The purpose of the lookout tower will change. You'll have the option to actually turn this negative relationship here into a positive one. So these Meeps are basically just like bandits. They don't have much, they don't have enough to eat, they don't have enough to build. And if you decide to actually spend some of your resources and give it to them, they will become more friendly towards you and they will join you much easier. So you can, if you need to grow your population, it will be a good idea, faster. It will be a good idea to befriend these Meeps, almost like give them a soup kitchen. And if you do that enough, they will firstly steal less of your stuff, and secondly they will join you more easily to grow your population. There will be a limited rate at which your population can grow, and you'll have to entice more people to join you by like doing good stuff instead of trying to fight them. Okay, so we've got the tribal camps, we've got the tribe members, and they will become Meeps, and all these other things work the same. You can construct a road to your lookout tower. It will be, you will be able to upgrade it. There will be tasks for it, just like the other buildings. So here you can see where a lot of the information of how to play and what to keep in mind is now built into the tooltips. This tells you about the experience of the 4 tasks, the frames indicating the experience level, and that you need enough experience in all the tasks to upgrade. So here you can see this one is 100% required experience. You've done all that you need. This one is also 100, so it's time to start building some roads and also having some leisure. Otherwise this builder is never gonna be able to level up. Okay, let me just have a look at the comments. Okay, sound is much better now. Okay, so I'll just make a note of the levels that we have so that I start next time on that level. Okay, so here they've explored the second tribal camp, and the next one or the other one should be then somewhere over here, kind of spaced, well spaced around your original starting location. Now in the same way that I've now have this one little tribal camp building, I will create whole villages of AI Meeps with that basically the same as yours, that harvest wood and stone and build their buildings and try to progress the same as you. And you will then have to trade with them, work with them, and make certain decisions with them to enable you in the end to actually progress well enough so that you can start having an impact on space and on the turtle. So one of the things that we've worked on a bit is what you see here. Here's a huge catapult. I just put it on where I knew the edge of the map would be, so it's standing in the water now, which is not great, but you'll be able to build this and place it on the map at certain locations, and it is then you will use this to, let me see if I start it. Yeah, so you can load it up. You load it with a ball of food and you fling that into space, and then gravity pulls it back towards the turtle, and as the turtle becomes aware of you shooting this food into space, it will turn to eat the food. That is one way you're going to save the turtle, make it more healthy, make sure that it lives longer, and you will also use this to change the direction of the turtle. So later on there will be other stuff in space, and you will need to either go towards it or go away from it. And using this as a steering mechanism, you can have a catapult on this side and a catapult on this side, and you can steer the turtle in the direction that you want it to go, bit by bit. So that is basically the new things that I've added up to now. You can see how we're going with the research. This leg is finished now, so it's automatically picking the next one, and it's research. We're not researching anymore, so it's stopped here. But all of these are construction-based research items. So as you research this, you will be able to build better, higher, bigger structures. And the same will happen then for all of the other buildings. They will have specific research items that improve their efficiency and what they can do, and how fast they can do it. And you can then select which ones you want to prioritize, or do you want to push the research into a realm-wide research that is also going to be available, that basically impacts the whole realm and not building by building. So let me just stop this thing. It should stop now. There we go. I'll just add little keyboard shortcuts that I can start and stop that. So here's the third Meep village. I didn't want the Meeps to just disappear out of nowhere as soon as you had capacity. So I wanted them to come from somewhere. At least it feels like you've earned them, and not that they just disappear whenever they can. Here you can see the food rolling around. The gravity has pulled it all the way to here, and it's lying on the map now. it's actually real physics handling this ball. Here as well, I'm simulating the gravity. I'm taking the center of mass of the turtle and letting gravity pull towards it. So whatever the velocity that the ball of food has, it will be turned back to the center of the turtle by simulated gravity. Okay, so yes, this is these tribal camps are the start of the actual AI players, and having them in unexplored lands, so that not everything on the map is yours, and not everything on the map gives you resources and gives you exploration, and you need to meet these other people, see what resources they have, what luxuries they have. A lot of your research will also give you luxuries that will you'll be able to trade that with your neighbors. Also get some of their Meeps to join you if you are your progress is faster and better than theirs are. But in the end, it's not about conquering these neighbors. It's about working with them, trying to find ways to solve the problems that there'll be on the turtle and in space itself. One of the other factors, you can see that the water is draining away. I've increased the rate at which it disappears just to show it, but this will also happen that you'll get like droughts, and that you have to steer the turtle into places in space where there's water. So this space is not going to work like ours. It's not going to be everything contained within your little atmosphere. Rain is going to be all around you in space, and you'll be able to steer the turtle towards rain if you need rain, and away from other things maybe that you don't need or that can harm the turtle. And when it rains, then these pools will fill up again. I'm also going to have buildings that interact with the water, and they will be able to do stuff on the dry land, the temporary dry land, so that that also increases your productivity when the water comes back on again, like fish traps and so on. Can you have a flood? Someone asks. Not at the moment. I've stopped the water level to the maximum where it started. So at the moment you can't have a flood, but I do want to play around with all kinds of environmental effects and options. Since firstly it will be quite difficult to build a complete battle or combat system, and I'm not really keen on that, so I'm trying to find different ways of having antagonists or threats in the game, and rather have like technological ways of fixing that, and overcoming that and making it safer for your Meeps to stay on the planet or their world, and for the turtle and their world to overcome these challenges and prosper and go on and do a lot of more things in space. So I think I've covered the new stuff that I've added. On the leisure side, there's also going to be some expansion. I've done some on the research side now, so there will be similar stuff on the leisure side that gives you different options of how you want to spend your leisure time, and this basically gives you, let's say, a quality of life improvement or an appeal improvement. And this is why the leisure hub is the appeal center. It gives you a lot more things to enjoy, and as you progress you can get more and more options in terms of this, and this will also then attract more of the neighboring Meeps to your side. Okay, so is there anything that anybody wants to ask? Oh, another thing I've added is that the Meeps, the idle Meeps, are not just standing still anymore. They are looking for places to walk, and sometimes they'll go 2 or 3 together to a certain spot, and they'll chat a bit about what they're not doing while they're waiting to get a building to work in. And this is the case for these Meeps and your own Meeps as well. I've added these UI elements to the buildings and to the Meeps, so I can have all kinds of rules that displays icons and information above the Meeps and above the buildings. This one doesn't have one because there's nothing really that requires your attention. For the most part, it will be like when the building can upgrade or build a road. You'll just see a green edge on the icon, a frame. This one should be ready any moment. You'll see there's a green frame, so there's something you can upgrade or build there, and it's actually the road to the Founders X. And then the icon disappears again, or the UI, because there's nothing that requires your attention. This is here because the buildings have 0 priority to some tasks. This means that you'll never be able to progress in that task, which means you can't upgrade. So if you see something like this on the map, you just make sure that you really don't want that building to do any of the jobs. As soon as you set any priority to that task, then the UI disappears again. So I'm gonna let it there's the leisure hub, so they'll hey, they should be going. I don't know if maybe they, for some reason, they're not visiting the leisure hub. I think I think there's an issue with my search algorithm. Looks for maximum distance, and I think it at the moment looks for where they are situated. So if I just call them closer, yeah, she's coming closer now, and as soon as they're closer, I think they should be able to reach that. So I'll just fix that up. I realized that yesterday. Yeah, now he's going to get some leisure, and this shouldn't take too long. I'm going to just speed up. There's a lookout tower keeping us safe on that side. How much time do I spend on the game per day? It's probably some days less and some days more, but it's probably between about 2 and 5, I think, most days. Some days I get a bit more time and I put it all in, but most of the days it's probably between 2 and 5 hours a day. A day-night cycle, yes, there is one. It's not in play, but I've already thought about some practical uses for it. So it will become night, and there will then be a kind of a stock take, almost like a turn-based within an RTS, where at night you make certain decisions impacting the next day, and this will also be a nice way to bring things into the game that you can't visualize real time, or that is just too difficult to do in terms of graphics and so on. So you can make it abstract a bit, and you can still put it into the night cycle to still make it part of the game if it's a good enough mechanic. So there will be night and day, and then when the sun rises, you'll go on and your units will get out of their homes again and start working again. So yes, night and day cycle is planned, and there will be definite practical mechanics linked to it, not just go dark and go light for the sake of it. So it will come into the game. Okay, almost done. Another 3 or 4 trips and they should be able to upgrade. Now the upgrading, at the moment you can just upgrade for free, but there will be 2 buildings that have already been planned a long time ago that I still need to add. The one is the Alchemist, which will be where you will get your iron and your alloys, and then there will be what I call a tinkerer. That's basically someone who just sits through the whole night trying to figure out how stuff works and why it works, and this will be the guy making your new tools, improving your tools, and allowing you to have upgraded tools for your building. So when you want to upgrade, this is where this icon comes from. You start off with your bronze, silver, gold level, and the tinkerer will need to make you better tools in order for you to upgrade. So you get better quality axes that can chop faster and so on. But as soon as that is in, then you can upgrade the building. It gets an extra story, or something happens to the storage space to show you that it's now a higher level building. The small animations, like the smoke and the windmill, I try to put enough moving parts into it without overwhelming it, but it also needs to look alive at least. I think they will, like the birds, they actually sit on the roofs. I specify within the models places where they can sit. So there was a place there was a place, and they will randomly pick some of these landing spots, land there, and then fly away again after a certain amount of time. So I think this adds a lot of immersion to the map and to the environment, and it feels a bit more polished and making it a bit more alive, and something you can actually even just look at to see what happens, or why it happens, and just have a look at everything. So you've got the little butterflies, you've got both like doves, and you've also got swallows. They don't sit down, but you'll see them flying past a lot faster than the doves. There goes one there. There's another one. Okay, so I also want to bring in some more animals, even if they just roam around. There's a question: do you achieve this with code or the animator? The chimneys is the smoke here is a particle system, so it's just a little transparent texture that increases in size and color and gets rotated a bit. This is with code. So I've got the blade part is a separate object, and I just rotate it around that specific axis in time. So this is not really an animation, it's an actual object moving around. Yeah, the animals have got their own little animations, like the Meeps, and I basically let the animations handle the visual, but the movement I do with code. So the path finding and how it moves on the path over time, that I set with the code. You'll also see that the Meeps go faster and slower depending on the what do you call it? along the slope that they are walking on. So this guy just walked off a steep slope, so we went slower, and as soon as he walked a little bit, he was rested out again and he went faster. You can see her going slower there down the steep slope, and she will get faster after a bit, after resting a little bit again. So that is all of that is handled with code, although the walking animation itself is an animation. So we can let these guys also do a bit, not just chop wood. Yeah, and that's basically it. I don't know if there are some new joiners that joined late. Yeah, we've got a way to, one, feed the turtle, and two, make it change directions to get it to go into a certain point, part of space that you need it to go to, either to catch some rain or to avoid some peril. All of that will still be fleshed out, but I knew I needed a way to interact with the turtle, first to feed it, and secondly to actually make it go somewhere in space that you need it to go. So there'll probably be an extra minimap, a space minimap, that you will also need to be able to see where you are, where you're going, how long it will take to get there, and so on. These UI icons here, you'll see that they are dependent on rotation and zoom and movement, so they'll always be looking at the camera or to the front in opposite direction of the camera. When you mouse over them, they get a bit bigger, and when you zoom out, they actually also change so that you can always see them. They don't disappear with the buildings. So if you do this, you actually have an overview of places that you actually need to spend some time on, so that those two can get a road each, and these ones have some tasks that have no allocation to them. Okay, so some of the buildings will have different kinds of mechanics. The lookout tower will not be tasks, so you won't have necessarily 2 Meeps living in this tower and having 4 tasks each. So there will be some other kinds of options in some of the buildings. Not everything will be just 4 tasks and work the same way. There will be some options here to do with interactions with the outside world and so on. The same with your I'm going to stop the catapult, even though it sounds great. Thanks to James. The same here, you'll have different. You won't have really tasks like the other buildings have. You'll have different options here. Some of it will be, as you progress, you'll be allowed to construct monuments or similar kind of things here on your starting settlement. In time, these temporary shelters will be replaced by something more permanent, something more beautiful, something more awe-inspiring as you progress, and that will also be like almost like a pat on the back. If you do well enough, you'll be able to show that visually with art and stuff like that, to also improve your appeal and get more people to join you, Meeps to join you. Okay, so yeah, this is a small map. You'll probably be able to fit 2 or 3 players in here, so yourself, 2 AI players, and a few, almost said barbarians, around the map. But you can really go a lot bigger with the maps. Yes, the frame rate drops a little, but on huge maps with a decent card and processor, you can still get 40-50 frames per second without a problem, even on a big map. So I'll still see in future if there's anything I can make faster, if I can improve the performance, if there's something that blocks that bottlenecks the performance. for the moment, most of the stuff is pretty optimized. Of course, I don't know about everything. I haven't got that much experience, but I'll keep looking for scripts or parts of scripts that take the longest and figure out whether they really should be taking that long, or if there's something I can do to them to improve their performance. But I'm quite glad that you're able to make a huge map that can keep you busy for a few hours, even with different AI players on the map as well. There's enough space to build a lot of things and really build a big empire or a realm, and really make it feel like a large colony or a large world. Units, you can really have like 200 units, and it doesn't cost that much in terms of performance. So 200 units running around on a map like this, or twice this size, it's it's a pretty high population. Again, I haven't looked into whether everything is optimized there. As the buildings and the units get more and more, the different types, there'll probably be some hit to the performance, but I'll keep looking for ways to put more stuff onto more threads if it's possible, to keep the main thread running as smoothly as possible. Okay, so there you heard our research has concluded. So we've added a voice for the Alchemist, which is kind of like the research guy, and that voice is being used to let you know that if any research has been concluded. There's also like 7 different sentences that gets randomly selected, like the other units, and when the Alchemist comes online, that voice will also be the one used for it. Okay, there's still a few things like flowers. It probably isn't that big of a problem, but there are some things where the flowers are where they shouldn't be, where the Meeps sometimes clip the rocks when they walk straight through it instead of all around it. That basically has to do with the randomization. So all the rocks don't look the same, they're not in exactly the same positions, so there's a bit of overlap and uncertainty around the edges, and when a Meep walks around here, he could go through the rock. I'm still trying to see what I can do with it. I have some mechanic in here where you can force the Meep to go around almost like an outside edge instead of an inside edge. I use that here on the buildings. I could try also employ that where there's, for instance, rocks that you always walk wider around the actual centers of the segments to avoid clipping rocks. And because of all the extra randomization that I've put in, some stuff like this could happen. You'll notice that, for instance, here the top of the hex is a lot smaller than the one here. Originally, the cat-like coding tutorial had everything the same, let's call it top size, with some randomization around the edges, but everything was basically the same size. And I've now changed it so that each hex can have a different randomization. You can switch it off, so now the hexes are all the sides are just flush, you don't have any randomness there. And you can also switch off the flat top size variability, so now you can see all the hexes are the same size, and this would produce fewer problems like walking through rocks and so on, but it also is just a bit too sterile, almost just too much copy paste. So I like having this variability in there. If you don't like it as a player, you can actually reduce it to whatever you want it to be. You can increase the terraces drawn per slope, so now we'll have 4 terraces, which is almost like steps. And if we put back the randomness then you can see there are a lot more terraces. This may be, some people may like it. It may be too much for other people. So I'm just giving you the option to have it like I like two, but however you want it, you can have it like that. It doesn't affect the gameplay at all. It's just visual options that you have. You probably know about the orthographic mode by now. So this is just another way. In the old days, games used to look like this, and if you want to go back to the old days for a bit, you can play like this again. Oh, yeah, it only affects the visuals. It doesn't have any impact on the game. And if you do this, you can actually see your world moving as it is moving through space. So decoupling the camera from the world so that all the movements of the turtle is shown in the camera as well. It's actually, the map and the turtle stays completely still, and everything around the turtle, including the camera now, gets rotated and moved in the opposite direction that the turtle would have moved, to move everything around the map, because I can't have the map move around, because all these the texture of the terrain, all these randomizations and the shaders here use world space, and if I change world space, these shaders would also just move around as the map moves around. So I need to keep the map perfectly still and then move everything that I want to be around the turtle, move it like an inverse to what the movement of the turtle would be given the animation. I still need to figure out how to handle this in other turtles. If I have another turtle here, they can't both be still because they have to move in relation to one another, but maybe on the secondary turtles, the not so important ones, I could probably go for a different shader there that's a bit more fixed, that doesn't use world space to calculate the random noise. But that's for a different day. There's a lot to do before we get there. Is there oh, you'll see here on the water, it looks like there are almost like two kinds of waves. There's the white foam waves, and there's also a normal map wave. You can see it moving across the, let's just switch this off. You can see it moving across the water, and that's basically just a normal map noise that also scrolls through the terrain. All these little random lines, there's also just a normal map being placed on the terrain. You can actually increase it to make it absurd, or take it away completely as well. And I think just a little bit of randomness, a little bit of texture to the terrain makes it look a lot better. You don't want to overdo it, because you really don't have to you don't have to see each blade of grass to know that you're on grass, and actually I think it becomes visually distracting if you see too much detail in the terrain. But having a little bit of just randomness in there, I think works well. You can also, I actually have it at different strengths. So on the rock areas, it's got more strength, and on the on the snowy areas, it's got even more strength. So you'll see a lot more texture to it here. I could have different normal maps for different terrain types, but that's also something I can just try and do much later if it is required, and if there's time to add really some extras to the game. Jerry Stridom, is that Jerry from Poch? In the chat. Aha, hello Jar. Long time no see. Is there anybody who would like to ask any more questions, see any more stuff? I haven't gone through all the buildings. I think we've basically built most of them. The Alchemist and the Tinkerer will be here on the improvement tab, and there's also more space for another improvement building. And as you can see, there's 2 totally unused tabs that each of them can have 5 more buildings. So I think with it, one of these are also already allocated to a fishery kind of building, a fishmonger that will have your interaction with the water and getting food from the water. And then there can be another resource building in here as well. Infrastructure, there can be 3 more that lets you interact with the terrain and do stuff that either changes the terrain or helps you get more out of it. Then there will be these 2 that will probably be for your more buildings, higher tier buildings like guilds and so on, societies, where it becomes less about resources and more about like services and luxuries and so on, that requires even where let me start here. You'll have dwellings where you almost like build an entire area where you've got like 8 Meeps living, and those Meeps will have different workplaces than their home buildings. All of these resource gatherers stay in the house that they also work in, but you'll get larger buildings with more people working in them, and those people will have homes where they stay outside of work hours. So you'll have dwellings here, neighborhoods, and then you'll have higher tier buildings here where you accommodate more Meeps, and where things happen that almost like influences the whole realm and multipliers onto what you already have and so on. And you'll also handle your trading and your relationships and so in these buildings. Release date, timescale. I would really like to release by the end of the year, even if it's early access with at least some playable storyline. There's still a lot to do. I mean, I've got 6 months till the end of the year, but I'll have to see how it goes. I'm spending as much time on this as I can, but I really can't promise anything. I'm aiming for the end of the year to have something decent that is almost like that I can ask someone to pay for that quality, and then have not just start the map and that's it and everything is there in one. Maybe a small tutorial. I'd prefer almost like a little campaign that teaches you how to play step by step for the start, and then have some interesting concepts around the mechanics, and have some goals that you need to do in a certain time, or each map of the scenario or the campaign having different outcomes that you need to get to bring the mechanics of the game in a bit by bit. I'm also thinking about ways of maybe adding something like a mechanic into this view as well, where you could maybe have to skill up in a certain thing in this view, like almost like a mini game inside of the game, where you have to be able to do something well enough so that you are able to use that skill going forward in the game. One of them could be linked to the catapult, so when you're here, there could be the catapult could have to be aimed, so you can move it to forwards and backwards a little bit to just aim it a little bit to that side, a little bit to that side, and you also need to get the force, or the how far you load it back, to get the force of how far it shoots out, and whether you either overshoot completely, or the force is not enough and the food just goes here, or you overshoot and the food goes all the way around and doesn't help. So that can be something that can be brought in, where you almost have like a first person view and also have to do some stuff in there, but that's all still just thinking about it at the moment. Any general advice for new Unity developers? I'm doing cat-like coding's tower defense tutorials right now. Yeah, I think what helped me the most, I mean, I've been coding for almost 20 years, so in other languages and just non-game dev things, that what helped me the most was that I was able to realize which tutorials and which people that made the tutorials I could learn a lot from. Many tutorials will take you through something that you think may be cool, but it either doesn't tell you why you do what you do, or it may even be bad coding practice, even though it gets visually gets done what you want to have done. And people like Cat-like Coding, on YouTube you've got Code Monkey. These are proper coders. They know about the technical side of how the methods and the classes interact with each other, how resource intensive it is, and how to structure the whole thing. So I would try to find quality coders to teach me whatever I want to know, and then also try and take that and build stuff onto that. So I've used like the time tick system from Code Monkey in this game, but I've added a lot onto it to add events and get the day-night cycle to run on it and get the trees to grow on that and so on. So if you get something that does something that you think you can use, take it and play with it and try to add stuff onto it, so that you really understand what it does and why it does it, and how you can manipulate that to add extra value to it, so that it does a lot more than just what the tutorial showed you to start off with. That's probably what taught me the most. I mean, I haven't used threads at all before looking into how can I make the terrain triangulate faster. And it was a few weeks and I couldn't believe how much I could actually push to the parallel threads, and how much larger I could make my maps, and how many more buildings and units I could add onto it because of threading a few things onto different threads. The scouting, this actually takes a lot of calculations to each time a unit moves from hex to hex, to calculate what it should not see anymore and what it should be seeing now. And I was able to move that off to a thread, a completely separate thread, and that improved the speed a lot. Same with the triangulation of the terrain, because the terrain is actually altered when you build the buildings. A chunk of the terrain needs to be re-triangulated every time that something happens with your builders flattening the ground in preparation for construction. And if you don't put that onto a thread, you've got a stutter every time that happens, which totally breaks the game. It totally breaks the immersion. And once I was able to put all of that into a separate thread, so that the main thread just handles the update of the mesh, that was gone. And that's because I looked at tutorials and I tried thinking what I need to add to this to make it work in my situation, and then just tinker with it and struggle with it and get answers online for the stuff that you don't know how to do. In my case, it helps that I have a feeling for what should be possible and how it should intuitively work, so it's quick for me to find the correct place to find the answer. And the more you do that, the more experience you'll gain in that, to see when you're wasting your time with something and when it's actually something useful and something that will teach you something you can use for a lot longer time than just this little tutorial that you're looking at. I second that. My day job is software engineer, and I can say there are lots of people out there that will teach you bad habits. Yes, it's easy to make something work in a suboptimal way, and when you have one windmill, you don't notice it, but when you've got 10 farms, suddenly your frame rate halves, and you don't know why, and that's because of some bad coding practice that you had 4 months ago that made something happen in a less optimal way, a far less optimal way than it can. And you don't have to over optimize every little single thing just to save every CPU tick that you can, but there are certain things that are really suboptimal, and if you've got that in and you try to scale your project, it doesn't work. And yes, in the beginning you may not know the difference, and that's fine. Over time, learn good software development practice. Yes, I completely agree with that. I think what helps me is try to think what happens in the background. What data structures how the data structures interact with each other. Is it a chunk of memory that has to be copied over, or is it just a reference? Is it something that has to be completely recreated, or can you just clear it out and reuse it? And how long does it take to do all of those steps? If there's something that you can do in 2 different ways, implement it in both ways, let it run 1,000 times and see how long it takes. And if the one is clearly better than the other one, try to figure out why it happens. And if you can figure out why it happens, where the bottleneck is, you'll understand a lot better how things work, why they work that way, and how to use that to speed up your stuff. But yes, I mean, experience helps. If you've been coding for 20 years, not necessarily games, but technical coding stuff, then it's definitely going to be easier to get into game dev, and know when something is maybe working but is probably not the best way to do it, or when someone you're listening to or reading or going through the tutorials really knows what they're doing in terms of a technical sense. Yeah, refactoring. Yeah, that's something that can cost you a lot of time. Is if you don't, I don't know if I'm using the correct terms, but if you don't generalize the code enough. So you write something for a specific to solve a specific case, but if you now want to apply almost the same thing to a different case, you have to rewrite the whole thing because you've almost like hard coded a lot of the stuff. So I always try to parameterize, and when I know there's different options that I will maybe in future need, I put that in as a parameter and make the method applicable to as many different situations as is reasonable without adding a lot of processing time. And for example, the search algorithm I use, I've got one that searches when you need to search in between the segments, and I've got one that searches when you just need to search hex by hex, and I only use those two for all of the searching stuff. Finding a place for a building, finding a place close to resources, finding the shortest route, finding a resource that you can harvest, all of that uses only those two search algorithms with a bunch of extra parameters that is optional. If you want to place a building, you can give it a parameter that says within a certain band around this building and as far as you can away from any other buildings of the same type. And I put that into the search algorithm as parameters, and it will apply the search algorithm with with certain penalties or advantages given what you've specified. So if you want to go as close to one of these buildings as you can also do that with a negative penalty that kind of pulls it towards this. And that one search algorithm handles everything. And that's because it's written generically so that it doesn't work for just one situation, but that you can reuse it very quickly for new situations that come up. So I spent a lot of time with the search algorithm getting it to work, and now when I need an extra search functionality, it's quite easy to add it onto the structure or the history that I have, or it's already there and I just need to change the parameters slightly to give me a completely different outcome. Yeah, and as I continue, every now and then I find a bit of code that is nestled into one inside of one larger method or class, and I realize that I'll need this in different places, and then you take it out of that large class, you make it a separate method, and you call it there, and you parameterize it as you need it, so you can also use it in different places. And the more you can reference generic methods that work in lots of different situations, the less time you'll spend on coding, and the more time you'll spend on getting the logic to work correctly and everything to link up correctly. And also you'll limit errors, because if you implement 5 slightly different versions of basically the same thing, and you find something wrong with the one, you're going to forget to change it in the other 4. Well, if you've got one generic process and you find an error with it and you fix it, it's fixed in all the places that actually uses that method. So it helps a lot in not having to go around every time you change something to try and remember or find the 9 places where you've used this slightly differently, and now I have to think about how to implement that change in all the different places. Okay, so let me just do it. I'm not doing all of this alone. I firstly have started with Cat-like Coding's tutorial. I've got some CodeMonkey methods that I've added onto over the months, and then I've also got Gerben, who is also on the line, the creative modeler HO. He helps me a bit with editing the models themselves in Blender. So I also don't know that well, so I'll rather spend my time doing the coding, and if I can get him to help me with that and save me some time, that's nice. He built the Catapult in the last 2 weeks or so, did the texture and the animation, so it's nice to be able to specify what I think we should add, and then with some input get him to build that for me. So thanks, Gerben. And he also has a channel, you can check it out. He does train modeling of trains and tracks and stations and so on in HO scale, and his videos are better edited than mine. He spends a lot more time on it, making it interesting and visual and nifty and so on. I'll do the coding, and I don't spend that much time on the actual editing of the videos, but he does a lot more. And then I've got James. I don't think he's on at the moment. He's the sound guy. He is basically a professional film works at the professional film studio. They wanted some exposure to games, and he offered to help me for free with the sound, and I think that has made a world of difference in just the quality and the look and feel of the game. The attenuations, the sounds just blending together seamlessly. So I've got these two guys helping me a lot with the sound and the modeling, and then I'm just trying to code as much as I can and build in as much as I can of the plans that I'm continuously thinking about adding. Okay, are there any other questions? Anything you want to see, you want to know, you want to ask me? Go ahead. Otherwise, I think we can end this. If there's been any, if there was any technical issue with the stream or with the feed, please let me know. I think it all went through without issue, and that's really what I wanted to test today. I've got the live streams as part of the next fest next week, starting the 16th and the 21st, and I just wanted to make sure that the stream actually can go an hour or so, and not give me any troubles. Okay then, thank you for being here, thank you for listening and helping me test this, and please keep an eye out for all the updates. Please send me some feedback. I love it when I get some good ideas about things not working well or that I can improve or that you'd like to see. And also, tell your friends about the game. The better the visibility, the more people I have interested in the game, the more it gives me almost like the permission to spend more and more time on it as I can, since it becomes like a viable project for me to do. And thanks for all of your support. Okay, thanks. I think we'll end it here, and yeah, you can of course drop me a line anytime on the YouTube comments, Reddit, Discord. I'll, even if I don't see it immediately, I'll get around to it sometime. Thanks again. Cheers.